Hey, hello Bio 2, this is Mr. B, and we're going to start today with looking at the diversity of mammals, part 2. So this is our second part of looking at the diversity of mammals. Remember, in our first video, we took a look at our first group of mammals, which are the monotremes, which are egg-laying mammals. Then we looked at the marsupials, which are the mammals that have a pouch. And so today we're going to take a look at our third and final type of mammals that are alive today, and these are called placental mammals. So these are our third group. And the reason why placental mammals have their name is because they have an internal structure that's called the placenta. So this is an important thing you're going to need to know. This distinguishes this mammal group from the rest. And what the placenta is made up of is it forms when the embryo's tissues join with tissues from within the mother's body. So this is how the placenta forms. This is actually what it is. It's the formation of the embryo tissues, which again is the developing mammal, and they join with tissues from within the mother's body. So in placental mammals, we'll make this a little bit bigger here. So in placental mammals, nutrients, oxygen, CO2, and waste are exchanged efficiently between embryo and mother through the placenta. So this is actually the function of the placenta, for the nutrients, oxygen, CO2, and waste to be exchanged between the embryo and the mother. And the placenta will allow the embryo to develop for a longer time inside the mother. So remember, the marsupials, they give birth at a very early age in the stage of development, and it occurs outside the body. So in placental mammal, most of the development occurs actually inside of the mother's body. And then most placental mammals will care for and nurse their young after birth. And so we have 12 orders of placental mammals. So we have a bunch of different groups here. So our first are insectivores, and so this is pretty easy to know what an insectivore is. It's going to be one that eats insects, and they usually have long, narrow snouts and sharp claws. So the sharp claws should mainly be for digging, long, narrow snouts to kind of dig their way in to areas that might be a little more compact or cramped. So insectivores is our first, and then sirenians. So these are large, slow-moving mammals that live in aquatic environments. So this would be things like the seals or the manatees, things like that. So these are slow-moving mammals that live in aquatic environments. And then the next one is cetaceans. So you're going to have to maybe bear with me through the pronunciations of a lot of these. So we have cetaceans, and these are aquatic mammals that must come to the surface to breathe. So think of things maybe like the whales and the dolphins would fall into this group. And then our next one are rodents, which we all know what a rodent is, and they have a single pair of long, curved incisor teeth. So this is mainly for they can chew through just about anything, or mice, as our most famous example of a rodent. And so then our next group here, I guess kind of switch sides there, I didn't even know it. We have perissodactyls, and so these are hooved animals that with an odd number of toes on each foot. So these two next two kind of really closely related. The main difference between being the number of toes that they have on each foot, and in class we're going to get to look up an example of each one of these. And then we have artiodactyls, and dactyl just means kind of like your foot or hand. So artiodactyls are hooved animals with an even number of toes on each foot. So that's these two very closely related. Only difference is with being the number of toes that they have on each foot. And so then we have lagomorphs, which are herbivores with two pairs of incisors and hind legs that are adapted for jumping. So these would be things that look similar to mice and rodents. However, they have these two pairs of, or their back legs are adapted for jumping. And so then we have carnivores, which they have sharp claws and teeth that used to catch, kill, and eat prey. So one of the more famous examples there is the carnivores. And then we have chiropterans, and these are winged mammals, so these are things like our bats. And we have xenanthrans, and these have simple teeth without enamel or no teeth. So these are mammals that have very weak teeth to no teeth. And then we have primates, which this is the group that we fall underneath, and they have highly developed cerebrum and complex behaviors. And then our last group is a proboscidean, and proboscis, remember, is that long structure used by a lot of insects for eating, and so this is a mammal with a trunk. So our obvious, most famous example of a mammal with a trunk is an elephant. And so to end our mammals, diversity of mammals, we're going to look at how did convergent evolution cause mammals on different continents to be similar in form and function. And as a reminder, convergent evolution is when unrelated animals develop similar body types. And so how they developed kind of the same body types is by biogeography. So this is by looking at how life and geography relate. So Earth's geography has shaped today's mammals. So this just means that the different land masses today and kind of how the Earth is made up affects how our mammals today actually look and how they live. So during the Paleozoic era, the continents were one large landmass, which we now know as Pangaea, and mammals could migrate freely across it. So this is mammals were moving all over the place. They could kind of go wherever they want, and they were all on one big landmass, and everyone was happy. So as continents drifted apart during the Mesozoic and Cenozoic, ancestors of mammal groups were isolated from one another. And so each landmass took with it a unique array of mammal groups. So depending on where they were when the continents started to move apart, that is why certain mammal groups live in certain parts of the world that they do today. And so similar ecological opportunities on the different continents have produced some striking examples of convergent evolution in mammals. So things like maybe Africa and South America, they could have kind of a similar they could have similar conditions, whether they're in the drier parts or whether they're in the rainforest areas. And then North America, kind of down in the southern portions, there is some warmer climates there. To whereas maybe in like Russia and like Canada, they have similar ecological opportunities there, both cold, not a lot of vegetation. And so these could provide striking examples of convergent evolution in mammals. So land masses merged in the late Cenozoic, and mammals dispersed into new habitats, and then living mammals reflect the diversity that resulted. So our living mammals today are kind of a really strong reminder of the fact that all the continents together were once together, and so there were similar relatives maybe, and then once they kind of got spread apart, they all developed similarly, maybe without being extremely closely related. And our examples would be right here is a good example. We look in North America, South America, Africa, Australia, and in Asia we have the nine-banded armadillo, the giant anteater, aardvark, a common echidna, and what's called a Chinese pangolin. And none of these things really are related to each other whatsoever. However, they all lived in similar conditions, so they all kind of developed similar functions. They all have a long snout, they all have claws for digging. Most likely they're all going to eat similar food sources. So that is what convergent evolution means. It means unrelated organisms kind of develop to look similar to one another. So that is it for our diversity of mammals. Let me know if you have any questions.